Hello lovely people, this is Nicola at Stitches and Slapdashery. I am completely re-recording my initial intro to this video. It got a little heavy. Let's face it, life is a little heavy right now, isn't it? A lovely person who commented on my vlog last week said how this was their little escape from the real world for a while, and I want it to stay that way. We all need our little escapes, and this sewing room is mine. I have been loving spending some time in here the last couple of days, doing some beading and some fabric cutting and some sewing, and it just makes me feel so much better. What I will say is, though, I live in Canada. As you can probably tell, I'm not a native Canadian, or native in that way, but also I am not born here. And but I am a Canadian citizen, and I have adopted Canada as my second home. Well, my main home now, really. And Canadian pride is at an all-time high. We are uniting, and we are buying Canadian as much as possible, and we are using a phrase that I hadn't heard of, because as I didn't grow up here, and I didn't grow up playing or watching hockey, I didn't know what elbows up meant until the last few weeks. It basically means we're ready to stand up for what we believe in. And if someone seems to be threatening us, we're ready to defend ourselves. And I think that's awesome. Before I get into the more fun stuff, I just want to say that this is a welcoming place for peaceful, loving, kind people of all color, all gender, all sexual preference, all everything. This is a welcoming place. I am an ally. I may be white, but I am an ally of people of all shades. I may be straight, but I am an ally of all people who are LGBTQ and everything else, and trans, and questioning, and everything. I may not know all the lingo, but I'm an ally. If you're here, I want you to be one too. If you're not, that's okay, as long as you're respectful. I'm a pacifist. I dislike military spending. I would rather my taxes went on more helpful, empathetic actions. But even as a pacifist, I recognize the need for a strong military, especially now. I am an optimist most of the time, but also sometimes a bit of a fatalist and a realist and an idealist. Like most of us, I'm a bit of everything. But I do like to maintain, as much as possible, a positive attitude. And because I feel like life is better spent that way. And I try and keep a good sense of humor as much as possible as well. Because why not? Going around with a grumpy face is not a fun way to live your life. So I'm going to do my best to remain upbeat in these challenging times. And I'm going to get out of my head and into my hands, as Kate from the last homely house likes to say. And when times get hard, I'm going to make stuff. When times are good, I make stuff. I'm a makeaholic. And I freely admit that. So let's move on to the making, shall we? I finished my shawl. I probably put in a little preamble a bit of footage of me having this on the blocking board and also unpinning it from the blocking board. I have so many clips from today and last night that I may not keep track of them all. Some things end up on the cutting room floor, like the intro I recorded earlier. But I do have a bit of footage of the heavy snow we had earlier this week. We're having more right now. Just light snow, but it's been going for hours. Just to remind us, it's not quite spring yet. But I was very happy to finish this shawl. or shawlette really. It's the sort of size where you put the V at the front and then just wrap it and bring the tails to the front. That's how I like to wear things like this. It's made with bamboo pop, which is a blend of cotton and bamboo yarn. It took very, very close to a full skein. I had to think about how much it was going to take once I'd finished the mesh section to do the last 3 rows of garter stitch. And then I did, for the very first time ever, a Jenny's surprisingly stretchy bind off. Woo. Which, yes, is a little tedious, but long bind offs are always tedious, and it just means you do an extra little reverse yarn over between each stitch. And it means that you don't have any pulling in on the bind off. So that was super interesting. I made it bigger than the pattern said. The garter stitch section is bigger, and the mesh section is bigger, because I wanted to use as much of the bamboo pop as possible. I could probably have made it massive and used both skeins, but I like a finish. What can I say? It was a very easy pattern. 2-row repeat for the garter section, 2-row repeat for the Irish mesh. Easy to memorize. And that center spine, it does have a mistake in the pattern for that mesh section. It misses one of the slip markers, and so a lot of people are saying, why is it you go from 2 markers over here to 1 marker over here? It's because she forgot an SM in the spine for the mesh. So keep that in mind if ever you make it. It started at the very top with a teeny tiny little garter tab right here, and then it just expands from there. Because I blocked it, it's lovely and drapey and open. I really love it. Because it's one of my favourite colours, I may keep this one for myself. That might just go into the rotation. One of the sad things that happened to me this week was I lost one of my favourite earrings. This little birdhouse here. So cute. I bought this at one of the farmers markets from a local maker. She 3D prints these and then paints them. And I've had so many compliments on them. I could probably get some more the same. In fact, I probably will, because I still have her Instagram name, and I could easily find out which markets she's going to be in so that I can go and buy some more, because these are so fun. And the other day I noticed I had lost one, and the next morning I found it on the parking lot at Michael's, crushed into hundreds of little pieces. So when I got in my car the day before, it must have fallen out of my ear, and I had driven over it. So sad. I need to get some more. So as a little bit of therapy, I made myself a beaded bracelet. It's a very pale color. They're really pretty beads, and I bought the string of beads with the green beads on the string. So the flowers and the green beads and some of the clearer ones came with it, and then the pink beads in the different sizes. Where are they? Whoops, dropped them on the floor. So these pink beads in the different sizes with separate string, just to supplement. And I bought some of this Stretch Magic in 2 thicknesses. Oh, lost them. I bought the Stretch Magic in 2 thicknesses because I suspected the 1mm one wouldn't go through the tiniest beads, and I was actually right. So that was a good thing I did that. I had also bought, because we had a staff appreciation week, our staff discount was better than usual. So I had also bought some of this cord, this bamboo cord, which is rather nice. And I made myself a very, very simple necklace or choker with this clay or ceramic sun. And so it's literally just a piece of cord, and it's got one of those, like a T-bar and a loop as a fastening, which I think normally you would use for a bracelet rather than a necklace, but it works. And I've got all that cord, and that will make lots of fun things at some point. there's been quite a bit of reading. I've been into Jodi Picoult lately, and I just finished Mad Honey, which was a really, really good read. And the book I am now on is called By Any Other Name. I had to think about that one. You know what? I'm terrible for spending days and days and days reading a book and then forgetting what the title was. Like, I don't remember what it's called. But yes, By Any Other Name. And it's about a woman who is a playwright, or an aspiring playwright. She finds out her ancestor from 400 years ago was also a playwright and may even have been the person who wrote Shakespeare's plays for him. So it flips between current day and 1500 and something. Very, very cool. I'm just blown away by the amount of research that Jodi must have to do to get these books written, because they are so complex. Very impressed. Because I'm refilming this whole intro and showing you my knitting and my beading, I can't remember what I said the first time around. There was a lot more. But seeing as I can't remember it, probably wasn't that important. Oh dear. So, I have had some fun today. I told Mr. Stitches, I said, I don't need to go to the library. You go on your own and pick up your holds, because I don't have any, and I'm going to stay home and I'm going to play in my sewing room. So that's what I've done. And I have lots of footage for you of me getting my sewing machines and my serger out and having a little dust and oil and a chat with you. And I have lots of footage of me making some disappearing 9-patch blocks, which I have never done before in my life. I had a lot of fun. I'm going to try not to make it too long, that, once I get chatting, I can go on after all. So I will edit it to hopefully a manageable length. But I hope you enjoy it. Yeah, you might want to get a cup of tea ready and settle in with your current project du jour, just in case it gets a little long. But yeah, I have all these scraps of squares, or squares of scraps of squares, scrappy squares, that I have previously cut, and I'm still working on getting my basket of scraps cut and into the bags so that they're ready and easy to use. So I actually used some of them up today, which was a lot of fun. I'm going to start by having a little play with my old Janome. It doesn't have a model number on it or anything. Oh, it just says limited edition. What I like about it, it's heavy. It feels sturdy. I didn't really appreciate the weight of that until I got the computerized one, which is basically all plasticky. This one, even though this is supposedly a quilting machine, the throat of it, or the heart space, is smaller than this old one. So I think if I was to ever quilt a large quilt again, I should probably just use the old machine. Amusing though that is. All right, I'm going to need to grab a few scraps of fabric. Hold on a second. Now, I never oil the computerized one. I never take anything apart. But with these ones, it definitely is possible to give it a little bit of oil. Possible and advisable. So this one uses metal bobbins. It's interesting, isn't it? They're both Janomes. In fact, I have 3 Janomes now. I have the mechanical, the computerized, and the serger. And this one uses a metal bobbin, and this one uses a plastic one. And as far as I know, they are not interchangeable. So I'm going to get everything out of there, all the hardware out of there. I have my screwdrivers ready. I have my little paintbrush for getting the dust out, and my oil. In fact, I think I'm going to just use this tiny oil here today. It's been a long time since I've done this. And I've barely used this machine since I bought the new one. I was trying to remember the other day how long I've had this. We emigrated to Canada in When was it? 1994. Multitasking is not always easy. Yes, we immigrated here in 1994. We live in British Columbia, Canada. We had never been to Canada before. We had no idea what we were coming to, and we just picked British Columbia because it sounded nice. It was before the days of the internet. You couldn't really do much research. You just had to kind of cross your fingers and hope for the best. Or come here on holiday first, which would have been the wise thing to do, but we did not. I obviously put some tape on this before as a sewing guide, and it looks really gunky here. So I know I started quilting in 1998 because I was pregnant with my third son at the time. I did a quilting class, and after that I was absolutely hooked. And so sometime between 1994 and 1998, oh, that's not what I want to do. I just realized I'm trying to unscrew the bobbin thread thingy. This is what I need to do right here. Sometime between 1994 and 1998, I bought this machine. I had to leave behind a lovely Bernina that my mother-in-law had bought me, because of course the UK uses completely different electricity and sockets and all that. And so if I'd wanted to use my Bernina and bring it with me, I'd have had to use it with a converter. So I sold it. That was a sad moment too. There's only two things I really am sad about leaving behind, apart from my family, of course, and friends. My Bernina sewing machine and my Citroen 2CV in the red and the white with the rollback red vinyl roof. Loved that car so much. Loved it. Okay, so I've got this switched on. It's amazing how dim the light looks on this. I'm sure it's a lot brighter on my newer machine. And another thing I like about this thing, a metal foot. My newer one has a plastic foot. Not impressed. Sounds pretty smooth, doesn't it? Let's just see if it needs any dusting in here. It's not bad. I'll dusty around here where the bobbin spindle is. Yeah, quite a big chunk of dust and thread just came out of there. I'm not a big fan of cleaning, but it's funny how when spring comes around and the sun is low but shining in the windows and highlighting all your dusty areas in your house, you start to feel a little bit of an urge to clean. Cleaning kind of gets in the way of the fun stuff sometimes, doesn't it? But we have to maintain a certain level of cleanliness and tidiness, so we descend into squalor. Okay, I'm just going to pop any old spool of thread on the top, testing this out afterwards. Got a little bit of oil in here. Now, I am no expert at knowing where to oil a machine, but I usually just look at what's moving and see what looks like it needs it. All right, where's my lid? Here's my lid. When you see how tiny the screws are, well, that one anyway, that is a very tiny screw. And the longer one and the shorter one are what's holding the handle on. It makes you realize that it's a good idea when you're carrying your sewing machine to make sure you have a hand underneath it. Usually when I'm carrying mine, I have my arm right through the harp space and I'm holding it by the body because the handle should not be relied upon to take the whole weight of the machine for any length of time. We pay good money for these things. We don't want to drop them on the ground and break them. I have at least had a cover on this machine lately, so it's not too bad as far as dust is concerned. Plate goes back on there. Going back to threading this mechanical machine, it makes me realise how lazy I've got using the computerised one. With this one, all I have to do is put the bob in there, put the thread in there, and once the top is threaded, then the top thread will pick up the bottom thread all by itself, and I don't have to do anything, whereas this one, you have to put the needle down and up again and pull it through. Yeah. I'm just going to pop a piece of fabric under there and just give it a little run. I think there's a pretty sturdy needle in there. I think it was last used for a fairly heavy sewing job, so got quite a thick needle in there, but I'm just going to use a double thickness of quilt cotton and give it a little go. And of course, unlike this one, I have to make sure the needle is up before I do this. Well, the tension is terrible. The bottom tension, I know I pulled it out partway through, but the top tension is too tight and the bottom tension is... Oh, no wonder it's too tight. What on earth? This was on 9. Let's put it back to 5. You know the top tension is too tight when you can see teeny little dots of the bottom thread at the top of the fabric. Yep, I went to press the button here, which I have on that machine, but I don't have this on this machine. That's funny. It's still not great. I'm going to check the bobbin tension as well. Now with bobbin tension, with one of these, you should be able to hold it and it shouldn't just, you see it's too loose. You can see it's not able to suspend from here. So I'm just going to grab my little screwdriver and I'm going to give the screw on the side of here a quarter turn to tighten it up, because I should be able to suspend the bobbin case without it just unspooling. Okay, that might be a bit too tight. I'm going to go back another little bit. 1/8 of a turn. Yeah, I think that's it. So it suspends, but if I shake it, it starts to move. And I think that's what it should be. That's better. So when you sew a seam, you should be able to see stitches on the top and bottom, but no colour from the top showing on the bottom and no colour from the bottom showing on the top. The stitches should be, the thread should be crossing inside the fabric. I think I fixed that. Not sure how that got so loose. Actually, I do know why it got so loose. Because it had some upholstery thread in there before that was super thick, and we had to loosen the tension so that my son could sew something, because it was thicker thread. But now it's ready for regular thread again. Okay. Looking a bit battered, this guy, but still very usable and very utilitarian. Let's turn that one off and move on. Okay, don't I have... That's interesting. I don't have an on-off switch on the machine for that. Moving on to this one, which I bought during the COVID era, 2020, when the store I worked at was closed for 7 weeks, and I was sewing from stash, and I had in mind for a long time to treat myself to a computerized machine. And so I bought it. I did the research online and found a local dealer that was selling them. Paid for it online. My husband went and picked it up in the 2 hours they were open for the entire week, and then got it home. And yeah, I've loved a lot of things about this. The only thing I haven't loved about it is the needle threader. The needle threader. It's got this thing you can pull down, and in theory, you can have it. The little tiny hook in there that's supposed to come as you come down. It goes through the needle. You're supposed to be able to kind of hook it in, and as it goes up, it's supposed to pull it through the needle. Very quickly found that it didn't work really very well. So I usually just thread it by hand. Also, as I said, it's pretty lightweight. I have sewn some heavy things on here, but it tends to shift around because it's not very heavy. But I do love the stitch range and the fact you can do a little bit of lettering with it, and the thread cutter. In fact, I can set the needle to finish up, so I don't have to do what I did there and continually do the flywheel or whatever they call it. I like the top loading bobbin. You can see how much thread is left in there as you're working, which is lovely. And yeah, it's got that automatic pickup of the bobbin thread, which is also wonderful. So I never take the top of this off. I don't want to mess around with this whole computerized section of everything. I did hear that you're not supposed to oil these. So, and I've had it for 5 years now, and it's been fine. Never a problem with it. But what I do every now and again, I'm going to need those. I'm going to need a screwdriver again. I also love the automatic buttonholer. That's another nice thing to have. But yeah, periodically I do take this plate off here because this is where all the dust collects. Well, it's cool, really. You know, such cool things, sewing machines. I don't know if you've ever gone to YouTube and looked at how sewing machines actually form stitches. But it's so freaking clever. Oh, I don't think I plugged you in yet, have I? Where's your socket? Ah, there. That's better. Now we can see what we're doing. So I'm going to start up by the needle because there's a lot of dust that collects up here. Oh boy, that is a lot of dust. Been a long time since I've done this. And it's obvious. I have heard that one is not supposed to use that canned air to force air into the workings because it can actually drive dust further into the machine. That's why what I try and do is just use the paintbrush to get the worst of it out. Now, there is a way of lifting this bobbin case out. There we go. This bobbin case at the bottom can get really, really compacted with dust. It's usually dusty in my sewing room, but today it's going to be even dustier. Once you start dislodging all this stuff. Yep, heck of a lot of dust in there. See if I can tip you down and you can see better. So there, this is where I'm cleaning in, right here. And around. And yeah, this was definitely a worthwhile exercise. Stitches look good. Yep, tension looks good. Using a sewing machine that you've just dusted makes you feel like you're driving a car that just went through the car wash. It feels really nice. All right, so number 1 done. Number 2 done. I have to say, I feel very blessed and privileged to be able to own two sewing machines and a serger. I realise that is not something that everybody has the privilege of doing. So this is my newest acquisition. This is a Janome, let's see, 13. It's called a MyLock 134D serger. It has the manual threading. I haven't had to thread it since I started using it. Well, I had to thread it and learn how to thread it and get it set up the first time. But I've made a few things now, just fleece hats really, just to get used to using it. And these spools of thread have quite a lot on them, so I haven't had to rethread it. I think there's a, oh, this is all the wrong way around, look at that. There is a way of doing it that you just notice that it's getting low and you knot on the next one, and then pull it through, which hopefully I will catch so I don't have to relearn how to thread it. But yeah, I've been wanting one of these for years, and when the chance came a few months back to get one, I was very excited about it. Now, there's no way I'm even going to consider taking this apart. I see that there are screws up here, but I'm not going to take them out. Let's just see if they need tightening. Oh, they look good. The machine is a little dusty, as is everything. So if you can see that, you'll see I put 4 different coloured threads in there. And that's a little trick that you hear about when you get a serger, because what you can do is then figure out which of the threads is not tensioning correctly at the fabric level, because they're all different colours. Yeah, it's looking a little dusty in places. I'm just going to open it up and see if there's any particularly grotty bits that I can attack with the paintbrush. Because as I said, I have used this for some fleece. I remember how to open this. Can't remember how to open this. All right, so this is what it looks like when you open it up. My phone is wonky. I'm probably looking at this wonky. I'll straighten it up in a minute. So yeah, you open it up and then you can see all the workings inside. I can see it's pretty darn dusty in there. Wow. And it's very dusty down here. Whew, that's looking messy. I'm just going to do the old paintbrush. Now, I don't know if oiling these parts is something I should be doing. I should probably read the online manual again that I managed to find when I got this. I was very grateful for that, I can tell you. Sergers are a little bit intimidating. Especially when you buy a second-hand one that doesn't have the paper manual and you don't get any free lessons in how to use it, which of course you would with a dealer. That looks pretty good. There's a catchment area down there, which has obviously been picking up lots of bits. What's that? Big strip of fabric stuck down there. Wow. I don't want to dislodge the threads. I do not want to have to rethread this, especially not the lower loopers, because those loopers are fiddly to thread. Oh, and there's a lot of red fluff around here. Let's get rid of that. What I haven't done yet with this is disengage the cutter and figured out how to sew without the cutter. But I haven't needed to yet. I will definitely get there. One of the things I could probably do at some point is make a fancy cover for this. I do have a plastic one somewhere. It came with a plastic cover. But could I tell you what I've done with it? Nope. I have no idea where it is. All right, let's just shoot through some fabric and make sure it's working beautifully. First, I need to make sure it's plugged in, which it isn't. Machines certainly work better when you have them plugged in. This is going to be a super long video, isn't it? I'm going to have to cut some out of my earlier blather out, I think. All right. Now, you don't need to actually lift the presser foot usually. Sometimes you can just lift the front of it just to tuck your fabric in there. And then you go. It doesn't have a light, does it? No. That would be handy. Also, this is a nice heavy machine with a metal foot. So I'm really pleased about that too. It feels sturdy, like it's going to last forever. Okay. Oh, this one does have an on and off switch. Isn't that funny? One machine with no on-off switch, two machines with an on-off switch. So that's the bit it just cut off. So you can see how the coloured threads work. I've got yellow, blue, red and turquoise in there. So you can see, ignoring that thread, which is from me sewing on the other machine, that's what the seam looks like on the front and the back. I just think it's so clever. I think if ever I wanted to get Mr. Stitches interested in sewing, I think this would be the thing that would interest him the most because it's so technical. Come on, cat. There we go. Here we go. Here's a cleaner version of it without the other thread in the way. So there it is. Front, back. So neat. My Let It Snow mug is very appropriate right now because it is snowing. Yes, it is March 15th, something like that. Halfway through March anyway. A week to the spring equinox, and it is snowing. Winter always likes to have a last hurrah before it gives in to spring. I have my bag of 5-inch squares that I cut way back when, and I'm just going to pick some to put together into a couple of 9 patches to have a play with this idea. This is a barbecue print. I really don't like it. At least I can at least choose prints that I like, right? They're probably not going to be matchy-matchy because there's quite they're probably not going to be matchy-matchy because there's quite the variety here. Oh, I've got some dark ones. I've got this flowery skull one, purpley one, and a dark one with mice. Oh, and that dark flowery one, which is the one I made my sewing room curtains with. There's another dark one. All right, I think we're going to have 5 different dark ones for the 5 dark squares. Now, which one would be good? If I'm going to cut this down the middle crossways, I have to bear in mind that the one in the center is going to be cut into 4 different pieces. Maybe I'll leave it like that because that little tiny dot will look fine cut into smaller squares. So let's do that. And then I need 4 lighter pieces. This is going to be a pretty random sort of square. Colours are not going to necessarily look good together. Could go with oranges. Oh, now if I had one more orange, that would be good. Oh, there's one which is orange. All right, I have the spool one, so that can be my oranges. Right, I'm going to sew these together into a 9 patch and then I'll show it to you when it's done. This is what my 9 patch looks like. Pretty wacky, hey? But it's just a play. Not necessarily going to become anything. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut it down the center this way and then across the center that way and then play with an arrangement and then sew it back together. This is what my square looks like, and I have sliced it into 4. I haven't been using a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, it's probably more like 3/8. So I made sure I measured my center block and it was 4 1/4, so I cut 2 1/8 from this line to find the center and the same the other way. You have to be careful. Once you've made the first cut, you have to be careful not to dislodge anything while you make the second cut. This is where those turntable mats that you can turn without disturbing the block might be useful, but I am not planning to buy one. So I think one of the simplest ways of playing with this is you can just like flip this one and flip this one. So you could have it like this. Certainly wild, isn't it? What you could also do is you could flip them all so that the small square is on the outside. So then what you end up with is all of these 4 large dark blocks in the center, and dark blocks at each corner and then strips of your lighter colour on the outside. That's quite nice, but kind of unexciting in a way, really. So let's see. Let's try something else. How about if I put all my little squares at the bottom left? So what you can do is you can play with this and then put it back together and it's done, or you can sew it back together and then you can slice it again in a different way. It's probably a little wasteful of fabric, admittedly, because you're cutting and seaming, and every time you cut and seam it, it's going to get a bit smaller, isn't it? What do you think of that one? Now, that one would be quite nice if it was part of a large quilt where you had lots of other ones, and then these small squares would create a big secondary pattern. Actually, these four blocks here, with this in the center, that's almost like another 9 patch. So if you ignore this part and this part, I've basically made a different 9 patch with a small center and a sashing. So what you could do is you could join a ton of those together and maybe even create a sashing that echoes this around the outside. Ooh. Now, let's try something else. That looks pretty random, doesn't it? If I join these together, it'll just look like I had a square of that fabric in the first place, because they're the same thing. A good way to assess what you think of something like this is to take a photograph of it and then make it black and white, and you can see the values with the darks and the lights. And sometimes that helps you to ignore all of the busyness and just see the value. All right, let's go back to what it was at the beginning. I was a bit uninspired by the one where I just switched it around like that. But I think I liked it where I had flipped just 2 of them and not all 4 of them. I think if you put a bunch of these in a quilt, there would be a really interesting diagonal that would help your eye travel across the quilt. I think that would be cool. I'm going to sew it like this. Press it and then I'll show it you when it's done. Here's the finished block. Looks a little wild, hey? You could probably use, say, a print for your darks and a solid for your lights, maybe, if you didn't like the wacky look too much. What would be really funky is if you made something like this and then you cut a diagonal and then put half of another square up against this one. Not sure how that would look once it had that. And of course, then you're dealing with bias edges, which could stretch out of shape. It was hard enough steaming the heck out of this to get it to lie flat as it was. So no, I think I'll stick with that. That's kind of fun. I think I might make another one. I made a second one. Unfortunately, I couldn't find 4 or 5 that matched, so it's still a little random looking. I did try and keep to the light dark idea. So I think with this one, I'm going to try the diagonal cut. I just need to grab a chalk pencil. Now, I can't remember what they did once they cut it though. Maybe they just moved it around or switched between different looking squares. Well, I'll figure it out when I get there. So when I've sewn these together with 3/8 of an inch seam, these 5-inch squares, I'm getting a roughly 12.5-inch block. And of course, if I subcut and re-sew, it's going to end up smaller than that. All right, I'm going to take the plunge. All right, I did the thing. I cut from the middle of this side to the middle of that side and so on around. And so these pieces are now separate. And I just think that would be a really cool block all by itself. What size did that work out at? About 8.5, 9.5 inches. Wouldn't that be cool? People would think you'd pieced so many little pieces together and it looked so complicated. But all it is a 9 patch with the corners cut off. Now let's see, what are my options here? I could just put these squares back, like that on there, that one over there, this one over here, and that one over here. Oh, I really like this. I really, really like that. Okay, let's just try something else. What if I was to use the pink on this side, just switch the sides across? So put the pink over there, the lavender over there, the spools there, and the blue and gold there. That's also lovely, but I see the problem is here. I am getting these matching up and these matching up. So it's just starting to look like a square again. I don't like that as much. So I'm going to go with my original idea of just taking them around from one side of the square to the second side. So move that one to there. That one will go here. Pink one will go here. So I'm just moving them clockwise. One step. I think that's gorgeous. I'm going to sew it like that. I am super pleased with that one. I know the fabrics are all very random, but I really like how this one looks. It's got that main square in the middle, which still looks the same. And then it's got the little triangles coming off it, where I cut the major part off. So when I sewed the triangles back on in a different way, obviously I had to do this side and then this side and then that side and then that side. So I don't know if I had to do it that way, but that's the way I did it. I added the extra pieces across from each other and then the other two, and then I trimmed it because the edges were pretty messy by that point. So I've ended up with a square that's about 11 3/4. So I didn't lose that much that time. So what I could then do is, if I wanted to get super wacky, I just noticed I've also got these little teeny triangles up here on the edges. And when I've got a seam on that, look how tiny that will be. Can't really see it because it's so light. Maybe there. So yeah, when I sewn that, that will be a very, very small triangle. But yeah, there's nothing to stop me now hacking it across ways and then flipping it around again. Shall I try it? You know, I might. Just for science. Okay, let's do it. Look how addictive this could get. Look, I cut it into 4. Isn't that fun? Now let's see what happens if I flip 2 of them. Like that. And put it back together. Oh, so exciting because you don't know what it's going to look like. How's that? Now, I think this would look even better if these 2 fabrics had been the same, because I would have had them looking like a butterfly wing almost. It would look like butterfly wings. And then the 2 triangles, the teeny ones, which would have matched right there. Woohoo, this is exciting. All right, let's see what happens if I flip these 2 as well. Okay, now I've got all my dark blue on the outside corners. These 4 bigger chunks are meeting in the middle. Yeah, this is interesting. Wow, how did I never hear about this before? If you look on YouTube for Disappearing 9 Patch, there's a billion videos about it. So what I'm going to do is I'm now going to sew them together like this, and then I'll call it done. This is a great way to use up fabric scraps and thread ends. I'm finishing up a couple of spools of thread that didn't have much on. I've been a bit slapdash with my sewing. There is a bit of bulk in some of the seams. You have to go a little carefully across it, but the nice thing is that a lot of the seams don't match up. So you're not fighting with triple bulk, as it were. Trying to get everything to sit flat here. Very excited to see what this looks like. Before I show you, I'm going to go trim it square if I need to. We'll just throw the 12.5-inch square ruler over it and make sure everything looks good on the edges. I trimmed it to 10.5 inches. So yeah, I think with a more limited palette, that could look really effective with those 2 big sections in the middle and then the matching ones over here. Either that or go even more scrappy. Because if you put together a scrappy block like this, people would not know how you'd managed it without sewing lots of tiny pieces together. And all you will have done is sewn a 9 patch, cut and sewn, cut and sewn. No fiddly stuff at all. I'm hooked on that. Well, my lovelies, I hope I didn't bore your socks off. If you're still here, well done, and thank you for watching all this way. It's Saturday today. I'm going to spend quite a bit of it editing this and also getting out for a walk. It's still snowing. And enjoy my crafty time. Do you know what? I just realized I only have 1 work in progress left, and it's really an unfinished object because I don't really want to work on it. So I've got the fun job of coming up with a new yarny project to use up more of my yarn stash, which is definitely a challenge that I am working on in a big way at the moment. So yeah, I'm going to figure out something to construct with disappearing 9 patches and something to construct with a crochet hook. And I will see you again next time and show you what I did. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you soon.